What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. So today we might be completing my least favorite WWF LJN tournament. So we're down to the last four figures. This is round 4, the semifinals. But if I can squeeze in the final match as well, I'm going to try to do so. As normal, if the video hovers close to 20 minutes, then I'll probably reconsider the final matchup for another video. But I'm going to try to get it in here because, again, you're only looking at 3 matches total, so there's no reason why we shouldn't fit it into a 25 to 30 minute video if need be. So, let's dive right in and see what the first matchup is going to feature. And we are looking at Ivan Putski, and he is going to square off against Bob Backlund, which just leaves Jimmy Snuka taking on Owen Hart. So to see 2 figures from Random Treasures, not only to find Random Treasures figures in a tournament like this, when you're considering the amount of money that you pay for each figure, I mean, you're paying $130+ per figure, right? And if they're tag teams, you're looking at about $180 per figure, and that's even without taxes, so closer to $200 as a matter of fact. There were an absolute ton of Ram Treasure figures in this tournament. I always say, at Ram Treasures, they have some absolutely fantastic figures, absolutely amazing, some of my favorites, but more times than not, I think they really fail to create the type of figure that I think we as fans are looking for, and that's play pose. I mean, I can't stress this enough. Every video, every time I talk about an action figure, one of the key elements for me as a collector is the play pose. I've had that mentality since I was a kid. I will continue to have that mentality until the day I'm gone. At least among the 4 figures that are remaining, I can at least say Bob Backlund has the best fighting pose. So this is a playable figure. And I've said it with the original LJNs. Obviously, it's very difficult for an original line to come up with 100 different fighting poses, right? So I kind of feel like if there were certain figures that had similar fighting poses, like you got Jimmy Snuka and Iron Sheik, understandable. SD Jones and Freddie Blassie have very similar poses. Your Hogan, your Andre, your Kamala, your Big John Studd, all very similar poses, right? So that's perfectly fine. I don't mind that. But with customizers, you're creating something based on existing figures. The B. Brian Blair for LJN works just fine. It's a fine figure, great figure, probably a top 30 figure in my opinion, and it's because it's got solid rubber, name recognition, good color to it, based on the Killer Bee look. But that B. Brian Blair pose on Bob Backlund, I just don't see it. I don't see Bob Backlund with this particular pose working. The straight color scheme, that's not the worst thing in the world. On a figure like this, you definitely want something to pop, and there's really nothing that pops on this figure. The colors don't really stand out, and the rubber is absolutely horrendous. This might have been the very first figure where they tried using some kind of different concept of creating rubber or something. I don't know how they fabricate these figures. I assume it comes out in some kind of machine or something. I don't know. I'm not a customizer, and your guess is as good as mine, but this rubber is terrible. I mean, like I've said, it's already starting to rip, and all I've done to the figure is basically stuff like this, while I make these type of videos. And you got big old gashes in the rubber where they're tearing. Very cheap, poor quality. Probably one figure in my life that I would strongly recommend against. Now, in the time since they made this figure, could they take, like, your Dino Bravo from Man Treasures? That rubber was so tight and firm. I love that. If they had that on this, much better. Ivan Putski. I kind of felt like these might have been the last two figures standing, so kind of seeing them square off here in the semifinals, at least you know that Ram Treasures won't have two figures in the finals. But Bob Backlund, Ivan Putski, Mike Sharp, those are three Ram Treasure figures that I thought 1,000,000% were going to be in the final for. But it's all based on who you square off in the match, square up against in the matchup. And Putski against Sharp, I think in round 2, you can't have one of the worst figures in the finals if they're squaring off that early in the competition. So, what do I always say? These tournaments tell you nothing more than who your winner is. In this case, who I like the least, or who's my least favorite figure. But it don't tell you who's your second least favorite, third least favorite, etc. Ivan Putski is a terrible fighting pose. This is simply something that you put on a shelf and never touch again. As a kid, and yeah, at some point in life, collectors like myself, maybe not me directly because I probably won't ever have kids, but at some point, some 25-year-old that purchased this figure because he got into LJNs and he wants this as part of his display, at some point he's going to have kids, and yeah, those kids are going to end up playing with these figures, there's no doubt. They just, outside of display, it serves no purpose. It's an unplayable figure and just straight garbage. Think of Harley Race. Harley Race with the hands in, okay, could you make use out of Harley Race if you're forced to? But what does Harley Race with? He comes with an accessory, a fantastic accessory. He comes with that built-on jacket, giving him that awesome look. So suddenly a Harley Race, if he was just in this outfit, is one of the worst figures ever made to a middle-of-the-rotation type of figure now. Because he's got that extra design. That's why I will always say I have absolutely no problems whatsoever with figures in clothing accessories when they're made. Knowing that Bob Backlund is at the very least a playable figure, I mean, does that give him a leg up? It does, and it gives him a severe leg up because play pose is the number one thing I look for. Second, color scheme. They're both just flat colors. That, you either black or blue, which one you like more type of deal. Even though I feel like they're both pretty cartoony, at least Bob Backlund has name recognition. Someone I grew up watching. I kind of like him better as the psychopath, that he became later on. That was pretty fun. But this is money not well spent. Nothing I would ever approve of. Putski at least has better rubber to him, I think. And that helps a significant amount. But he's not somebody I knew beforehand. I know this name strictly from collecting and learning about, wrestlers of the 60s, 70s, etc. Especially as they've carried over into the 80s, 90s. Think about the Bushwhackers. Those guys wrestled together for 40 plus years. So, spanning multiple decades. 60s into the 2000s, crazy. With this matchup, this is tough. I'm going to say Ivan Putski wins as a worse figure than Bob Backlund. With that being said, there is a no doubter. This is one of my least favorite figures ever created. And I don't think of Ram Treasures as customizers. They're a brick and mortar store. They've got their own machines and stuff to create this stuff. It'd be one thing if, like, someone like myself, if I was an artist and I created this in my basement or something, pretty solid work. But you don't look at, the Jake Roberts LJN. I don't look at that as a good figure. It's because it's really not. Hand pose is terrible. But at least the rest of the figure is fine, right? For a professional business, this isn't good. And he wins this matchup being the better figure for the simple fact that at least he's got a play pose. For no other reason. His only criteria. Bob Backlund is out of this tournament. Ivan Putski is a finalist, which means that your last matchup is going to feature Owen Hart squaring off against Jimmy Snuka. There's not much more I can say about Jimmy Snuka. I think I have a pretty good idea of how I'd like this match to play out. And with Mike, if he ever watches this video, I like so many of your figures, buddy, but this one was just not good. This was not done well. I think I brought it up in the past where I talked about the Jim Neidhart, where they took a junkyard dog, painted the skin, made him a fantastic looking Jim Neidhart figure, and when you look at the two characters together, it's like one of the worst I've ever seen Mike do compared to probably the best figure I've ever seen Mike do. So it's kind of a little bit of a toss-up on that one. I've overlooked the fighting pose. I've overlooked the Macho Man body. I always try to focus on this segment of the body. And Owen Hart, like I said, he wasn't exactly a huge fan favorite of mine as a kid. He was quite annoying, you know, that inferiority complex a lot of younger siblings have. Especially when their older siblings get all the accolades and whatnot. You know, Bret Hart was a tag team champion, intercontinental champion, heavyweight champion, Royal Rumble winner, King of the Ring winner. I mean, freaking Bret Hart is a legend in every sense of the manner. And you just look at Owen Hart as the younger brother, which sucks because the man had mad skill. And if he had stuck around and, you know, kind of dug in with today's, I don't know, who do I think of, like major high flyers, like the Hardy brothers. I've only seen matches a few times of theirs because, you know, it just happened to be on. Their acrobatics and technique skill, I mean, I think Owen Hart would have fit in beautifully with guys like that. Kofi Kingston, absolutely amazing. So yeah, I think that would have been an awesome tag team. Kofi Kingston and Owen Hart together. I mean, that would have been pretty spectacular. If it's just simply who do you like more as a fan, who are you more of a fan of, Owen Hart or Jimmy Snuka? Owen Hart get the leg up. Fighting pose, Macho Man, not the best. Probably a 40 to 45 range figure for me, if I had to guess. But still light years better than what you get from Jimmy Snuka. Why is Owen Hart, if he is such a good or to borderline great figure, why is he even in this tournament for being one of the worst figures of my collection? Why is he a semi-finalist? That head sculpt alone tells you everything you need to know. I can't see it. No matter how much I look at it, I mean, Ivan Drago would be a better option than Owen Hart. So, that kills it for me. Jimmy Snuka of the 80s, I don't know. Jimmy Snuka of the 90s, yeah, I watched him as a kid, no doubt. Because it's fresh in my mind, it's something I watched probably a year or two ago. 2008, maybe 2010 Royal Rumble, something like that. And, you know, they obviously bring back legends for, you know, Royal Rumbles and stuff like that. And, you know, Jimmy Snuka returns to the match, and I just watched him in there, and I'm like, I was so flabbergasted how terrible he was. And I get it. You know, the man's super heavy. He's like probably 60-something years old by that point. But like his headbutts look so freaking fake. He was doing it about like little eye pokes and stuff. I'm like, so boring. And then Roddy Piper showed up, and you see Jimmy Snuka in the ring kind of doing a little stare down. I thought that was incredible. Piper had really let himself go, but you know what? I think most adults at some point in their life don't really focus on physical fitness. I have my gym. I know I need to get back in there and get working out again, but it sucks because of the fracture of the arm. Like, I can't even swing my arm on the elliptical machine. That's how bad it hurts. And I could do it one-handed, but I don't know, it's just kind of boring. But I'm sure when the weather warms up, I'm going to have to, as I clear out that garage more and more. Back to the tournament. Jimmy Snuka, I think I enjoy less than Owen Hart. I'm not a fan of this, so to the point where if I ever sold this, it wouldn't kill me. But I'd probably ask for like $65 to $75 for it, and try to earn back some of the money I paid for it. But I know I would never get it, so even 50. I think I'd probably take 50 on this. Otherwise, it's just it's just there. It's just another figure for the collection. It doesn't have to be sold. Like I said, I'm indifferent about it. Jimmy Snuka. It's funny that I don't even have Rick Rude in the semifinals. I thought, Rick Rude might contend for the worst LJN ever made. Rick Rude didn't even make it out of the first round, so I covet that figure more than all of these other figures that we've looked at. Amazing. Well, I can't say all because, again, it's based on who you have the matchup, who they're facing. And I just scraped off some major paint. Of course I did. So, yeah, we're going to have time to do the finals. So, we are now in round 5, the finals. The worst LJN figures ever made. Ivan Putski or Jimmy Snuka. I really can't say any more in this matchup that I've been saying, because Ivan Putski, I have no history with him. I mean, I could say that, I don't know, who's like a real big legend. I'm trying to think. Some guy that was like huge in the 1980s, and maybe like I started watching him for the first time in the 90s. Yeah, we could say like Ricky Steamboat would be a good answer. Mega superstar of the 80s, one of the most beloved characters ever. But what I knew of, think Hasbro era, with the, this is the Ricky Steamboat as I knew him, and I was never a huge fan. I think if I was born, 5 or 10 years earlier, yeah, 1980, 1975, somewhere in that time frame, I would have loved Ricky Steamboat, probably been an enormous fan, but just didn't mean much to me. And, so, when I think Ivan Putski, yeah, you got a legend from decades prior, but nobody I ever grew up, I know him by name, or know him by reputation, I guess. Jimmy Snuka is a really terrible figure. Their colors are both below subpar, so far below subpar that that's not even an option. Neither one of them really has any enjoyable play. If I was a kid and I had all of these figures, I'm looking around the room, there are certain action figures that wouldn't even see the light of day, even in passing. Even like a grudge match, or I keep calling it a grudge match, squash match, where you plan on just wrestling for 2 minutes and then pinning, game over. No. Neither one of these. They're both garbage. At the end of the day, yes, Jimmy Snuka can do a little bit extra than what you can with Ivan Putski. Putski, not good. I'm not gonna, shoot around the horn. BS. Trying to come up with an answer. I think we all knew once Ivan Putski made it to the finals or semifinals that he was probably going to be the winner. And to me, it all boiled down to, I think it all boiled down to either Bob Backlund or Putski. I think if Mike Sharp was still in this competition, that would have been a huge possibility as well, but am I saddened that Random Treasures created the worst LJN ever? I would say that I'm disappointed, and I think a lot of the time when you're talking, you know, you're not angry, you're not saddened or anything like that. You know, you're disappointed. If this was a $40 figure, I could live with it, but knowing that you paid 3 times as much, and I have to have them. With my OCD, if I don't have it, if I don't complete the line, it absolutely eats me up inside, so. And I think Random Treasures is going to be the next LJN type of deal, where you're going to want it to try and complete the entire collection. You know, I don't think that store is going to be around forever. But plus they kind of messed me up. My last order that I looked at, the last one I got from them, which featured Finkel and Texas Tornado and Brian Pillman. Normally you buy something from them, 10% off. You know, you get the figure like around $130 with free shipping if you go through Etsy. I always pay them through PayPal because, or at least, you know, several times in the past I've done that because, one, I want them to get the full amount of money, but they send it because it's a business, I don't have the option of doing friends and family. And, you know, the goal is by doing it through PayPal, you know, you're paying less of a fee, you know, they'll take an extra 10% off and I get 20% off, and that they didn't do that this time, and they charge me shipping. I'm like, dude, I could have just gone through Etsy and got them free shipping and saved $12 in each figure. So, yeah, kind of disappointed about that. But yeah, Ivan Putski, worst LJN ever created. Not one of my recommended figures. He was acquired simply for the collection and for the amusement of you as the viewers. Alright, so that completes this tournament. If I do get some new custom Galoob figures in, I would like to do the Galoob, my favorite Galoob tournament next. I don't know, I'd have to have at least... Technically, I could do one right now. Even just looking at the original figures, because I think there's 30 or 31 original figures, which means I only really have to take 1 or 2 customs and make it even, like this tournament. But I want to get to 64, because 64, you know, breaks into 32, and just the numbers are just even throughout. Whereas if you go from like 40 to 20 to 10 to 5, and then, you know, you don't got the evenness anymore, right? Of course, I like doing 3-man finals, so something like 40 figures would work too. Yeah. That is for this video. Nothing else in the short term coming up, so thank you. Hopefully you guys enjoy the tournament, and let me know what you think. As always, guys, look forward to talking to you in the comments, and see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.